I stood in the doorway of room 7B at Riverside Children's Home, staring at the single duffel bag on my bed. 18 years. This was what I had to show for it. Everything I owned fit in one bag. The morning light came through the window, the same way it had every morning for 16 years, thin gray and different. I'd watched that light move across this floor so many times I could map its path with my eyes closed. Now I was watching it for the last time. $73 in my pocket. No family, no plan, just a bus ticket to somewhere that wasn't here. I was zipping up the bag when I heard footsteps in the hall. Heavy, deliberate, not the shuffle of children or the quick pace of staff. These footsteps belonged to someone who didn't come here often. The knock was polite, professional. I opened the door. A man in his 60s stood there, gray suit leather, briefcase eyes that had seen too many hard conversations. He looked at me like he was trying to match my face to a photograph he'd studied. "Miss Hayes," his voice was careful, measured. I nodded. "My name is Barrett Sullivan. I'm an attorney. May I come in?" I stepped aside. He entered slowly, taking in the bare walls, the narrow bed, the single window. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Pity, maybe, or recognition of what 16 years in this place meant. He set his briefcase on the desk and pulled out a thick envelope. The paper was expensive, I could tell by the weight of it. There was a wax seal on the back, dark red, pressed with initials I couldn't read. "Miss Hayes, I'm here about your grandfather's estate." The words didn't make sense at first. They hung in the air between us like something spoken in a foreign language. "My what?" "Your grandfather, Warren Frost. He passed away 3 weeks ago." Barrett's hands rested on the envelope. "You're his sole heir." I sat down on the bed because my legs suddenly didn't trust themselves. "I don't have a grandfather." "You did." Barrett opened the envelope carefully like it contained something fragile. "Your mother was Celia Hayes, born Celia Frost. She was Warren's daughter. She left home when she was 17, pregnant with you. She died when you were 2 years old." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the mattress. "I never knew her." "I know. Warren tried to find you. He spent 16 years trying." Barrett pulled out a document, legal letterhead, official, with stamps, the kind of paper that changes lives. "He left you everything. 285 acres of land in Montana, a house, equipment, and $31,000 in savings." I stared at him. The words were English, but they refused to form meaning. "Why?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Why didn't he come get me?" Barrett's face softened in a way that told me he'd asked himself the same question. "He tried. The system is complicated. There were obstacles I don't fully understand. But what I do know is this: Warren Frost never stopped looking for you. And when he knew his time was running out, he made sure you'd have something to come home to." He placed a key on the desk. Brass, old, worn smooth by decades of use. "This is for the house. 348 Maple Ridge Road, Redwood Hollow, Montana. There's a caretaker managing things until you arrive. But it's yours now, Miss Hayes, all of it." I picked up the key. It was heavier than it looked. "What if I don't want it?" "Then you can sell it. The land alone is worth close to $2 million. Barrett closed his briefcase. "But I'd suggest you go see it first. Your grandfather left you more than just property. He left you answers." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "He loved you, Miss Hayes, even though he never got to meet you. I saw it in the way he talked about you, the way he prepared for you." Barrett's voice dropped lower. "Some people spend their whole lives building something. Warren spent his building a home for someone he'd never held. That's a rare kind of love." The door closed behind him. I sat alone in room 7B with a brass key in my hand in a future I couldn't picture. For 16 years, I'd told myself the same lie every night before sleep. "Nobody wants you, Lila. Nobody's coming." And I'd believed it so deeply that it had become the foundation of everything I knew about myself. But now a stranger had walked in and dismantled that foundation with a single sentence. "He loved you." I looked at the key, at the address written on the envelope. Redwood Hollow, Montana. A place I'd never heard of. A grandfather I'd never met. A life that had been waiting for me while I aged out of a system that never quite knew what to do with me. I should have felt joy, relief, something bright and hopeful. Instead, I felt terrified, because hope was dangerous. Hope was the thing that hurt most when it turned out to be a lie. But I packed the key in my duffel bag anyway, and I bought a bus ticket west. The Greyhound station smelled like diesel and old coffee. I sat by the window with my bag between my feet, watching people say goodbye to each other. Families, friends, people who had someone to miss them when they left. I had barely any money, a bus ticket, and a stranger's address in Montana. The bus pulled out at noon. For the first 3 hours, I watched the city thin out into suburbs, then farmland, then stretches of empty highway bordered by nothing but sky. I'd never been this far from Riverside. I'd never been anywhere. At a rest stop somewhere in Nebraska, I called the number Barrett had given me, the caretaker. A man answered on the second ring. Sullivan said you'd be calling. His voice was older, weathered. Name's Hollis Brennan. I've been looking after Warren's place since he passed. I'm on a bus. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. I'll make sure the house is ready. There was a pause. Then, you look like him, don't you? I don't know. I've never seen him. Another pause, longer this time. Well, you will soon enough. There's pictures all over the house. And other things. Things Warren wanted you to see. Hollis cleared his throat. Drive safe, Miss Hayes, or ride safe, I guess. We'll be waiting. The call ended. I stared at my reflection in the bus window as darkness fell. The landscape outside disappeared into shadows. Inside, fluorescent lights turned everyone into ghosts. I thought about what Hollis had said. You look like him. I didn't know what I looked like. I knew the mechanics: brown hair, dark eyes, a face that had always felt too angular, too sharp. But I'd never looked like anyone before. I'd always been just myself, disconnected from any larger story. The idea that somewhere in Montana there were photographs of a man whose face might mirror mine, it made something in my chest pull tight. The bus rolled through the night. I didn't sleep. By dawn, we were in the mountains. Real mountains, not the gentle hills I'd seen in picture books. These were massive ancient things that made the sky seem smaller. Snow clung to the peaks even though it was October. At 10 in the morning, the bus pulled into a town so small I almost missed it. A single stoplight, a diner, a gas station, a general store with a hand-painted sign. Redwood Hollow, population 920. I was the only person who got off the bus. The air was different here, thinner, colder. It smelled like pine and wood smoke and something else I couldn't name, something clean and sharp that made my lungs expand wider than they had in years. A man was waiting by an old pickup truck. 70s maybe, with a carpenter's build and hands that had seen decades of work. He wore a flannel shirt and a canvas jacket, and when he saw me, he took off his hat. Miss Hayes, I nodded. Hollis Brennan. He shook my hand firm, but not crushing. Welcome to Redwood Hollow. Warren's place is about 4 miles out. I'll drive you. I threw my bag in the truck bed and climbed in. The interior smelled like sawdust and coffee. A thermos sat in the cup holder, steam rising from the cap. We drove in silence for the first mile. The road curved through forest so dense the sunlight barely reached the ground. Then the trees opened up, and I saw fields, huge, empty fields, stretching toward the mountains. 285 acres, Hollis said, following my gaze. Most of it's grazing land, some timber. Warren didn't farm much the last few years. His heart wasn't great. What did he do? Carpentry mostly, built half the houses in town, fixed the other half. Hollis glanced at me. He was a good man, quiet, kept to himself after Celia left. But everyone respected him. Celia was my mother. I know. His voice softened. She was something. Smart. Headstrong. Warren loved her more than anything. When she left, it about killed him. And when she died, he trailed off. Well, he spent the rest of his life trying to find you. The truck turned onto a gravel road. Ahead, through a line of oak trees, I saw it. A white farmhouse with green shutters. 2 stories. A wraparound porch. Behind it, a red barn that looked like it had been standing for 100 years. Hollis pulled up to the front steps and turned off the engine. Take your time, he said. I'll be at the barn if you need anything. Doors unlocked. I got out slowly. The gravel crunched under my feet. The air was so quiet I could hear the wind moving through the trees. The porch steps creaked. The front door was heavy wood painted green to match the shutters. The brass doorknob turned easily in my hand. I stepped inside and stopped. The house was frozen. Not cold, just still, like a photograph that had come to life. Everything was exactly where someone had left it, expecting to return. In the kitchen, a coffee mug sat on the table next to a folded newspaper. The crossword puzzle was half finished, pencil marks neat and careful. The calendar on the wall showed October. Someone had circled the 15th in red ink and written in block letters, Lila's 18th birthday. 3 weeks ago. He'd been counting down the days. I touched the edge of the table. The wood was smooth, worn by years of use. I imagined him sitting here every morning, drinking his coffee, filling in his crossword, looking at that calendar and thinking, soon. She'll be 18 soon. she'll be free. The living room had a stone fireplace that reached to the ceiling. Bookshelves lined the walls, farming journals, classic novels, photo albums. I pulled one down. The first page showed a man in his 30s standing in front of this house. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a smile that looked like it didn't come easily. Next to him, a young woman with my eyes, my chin, my two sharp angles. On the back, someone had written Warren and Celia 1908. I flipped through the album. Celia as a teenager laughing on the porch steps. Celia in a graduation gown. Celia holding a baby. I stopped. The baby was maybe 6 months old, wearing a yellow dress. Celia was smiling, but her eyes looked tired, older than they should have been at 22. On the back, Celia and Lila, 2006. I stared at that photograph for a long time, tried to find some memory of her in the corners of my mind, but there was nothing, just the ache of a missing piece that would never fit back into place. I set the album down and walked upstairs. 3 bedrooms. The first was clearly Warren's, a simple iron bed, a dresser, more photographs on the nightstand. I picked up one of the frames. Warren, older now, maybe in his 60s. He stood in front of the barn, holding a hammer, squinting into the sun. His face was weathered but kind, and his eyes, I looked in the mirror hanging on the wall. We had the same eyes, dark, serious, a little sad. The second bedroom was an office, filing cabinets filled with farm records and tax documents. Everything organized with the precision of someone who understood that details mattered. The third bedroom stopped my heart. It was painted soft pink. A twin bed with a handmade quilt, blue and white, stitched with care. A bookshelf filled with children's books, spines uncracked. A rocking horse in the corner, paint worn smooth by imaginary rides that never happened. And the closet, I opened it slowly. Dresses, dozens of dresses, organized by size. Toddler, child, preteen, teenager, tags still attached, never worn. He'd been buying them for 16 years, every birthday, every Christmas. Every time he went to town and saw something he thought I might like, he bought it and hung it in this closet, building a wardrobe for a granddaughter he'd never met, hoping that someday I'd need it. I pulled out a dress size 8, bright yellow with white flowers. The tag said it was from 2012. I would have been 8 years old. I sat on the bed and pressed the dress to my chest. For 16 years, I'd believed I came from nothing, that I was unwanted, that the reason no one came for me was because no one cared enough to try me. But this room told a different story. This room had been waiting for me since I was 2 years old. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The quilt smelled faintly of cedar and lavender, like it had been carefully stored, protected from time and dust and the erosion of hope. He loved you, Barrett had said. I believed him now, but it didn't make the grief any lighter. If anything, it made it heavier. Because now I knew what I'd lost. Not just a grandfather, but 16 years of being loved, of being wanted, of having someone who thought about me every single day and never stopped hoping. I closed my eyes and let myself cry for the first time since I was 12 years old. I don't know how long I stayed in that room. Long enough for the sunlight to shift across the floor. Long enough for the house to settle into its evening sounds, wood creaking, wind against windows, the distant call of birds I couldn't name. Eventually, I stood up and walked back downstairs. In the kitchen, I opened drawers, trying to learn the architecture of Warren's daily life. Silverware, dish towels, a drawer full of pens and rubber bands and keys that probably opened things he'd long forgotten about. And in the back, taped to a folded piece of paper, a small brass key. I pulled it free. The paper was thick, expensive. On the outside, in careful handwriting, "For the truth." My hands shook as I unfolded it. Lila, if you're reading this, you've found the house. You've seen the room I made for you. You know I was waiting, but there's more you need to know. More I couldn't tell you while I was alive, because I didn't know if you'd ever come home. In my closet behind the shoe rack, there's a safe. This key opens it. Inside, you'll find letters. I wrote them to you over 16 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I missed you so much, I thought my heart would stop. I sent every single one to the last address I had for you. Every single one came back. But I kept them anyway. Because I needed you to know, even if you never read them, that I never stopped trying. I never stopped loving you. There's something else in that safe. Something about your father, about why he died, about why you ended up in that system instead of here with me. It's not a story I wanted you to carry, but you deserve the truth. Be careful, Lila. There are people in this town who don't want you asking questions. People who benefit from silence. Find Hollis. He'll tell you the rest. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you home when you were small and needed me most. But you're home now. And everything I built for you. Welcome home, sweetheart. Grandpa Warren. I read the letter 3 times, then I folded it carefully and went upstairs to Warren's room. The closet was small organized. Shirts on hangers, boots lined up on the floor, and in the back behind a wooden shoe rack, a panel that didn't quite match the wall. I moved the rack aside. The panel slid free easily. It was designed to. Behind it was a small safe, maybe 2 feet square. Dark green metal, a keyhole in the center. The brass key turned smoothly. Inside were 4 cardboard boxes, each one packed with envelopes. I pulled out the first box and carried it to the bed. The envelopes were standard size white, addressed in careful handwriting to Lila Hayes Riverside Children's Home, followed by an address I recognized. Each one had a stamp. Each one had been mailed, and each one had a red stamp across the front, returned to sender, address unknown. My hands trembled as I opened the first envelope. The postmark read January 2008. I would have been 4 years old. Dear Lila, today's your birthday. You're 4 years old. I wonder if you like cake. I wonder if someone is celebrating with you. I hope so. I planted a tree for you today, an apple tree in the front yard. Someday when you come home, we'll pick apples together. I'll teach you how to make cider. Your grandmother used to make the best cider. You would have loved her. I called the children's home today. They said they have no record of a Lila Hayes, but I know you're out there. I know you're alive. I won't stop looking. Happy birthday, sweetheart, Grandpa. My throat closed. I set the letter down and opened another. Then another, letter after letter. Year after year. Some were short, just a few sentences about the weather, about something he'd built, about missing me. Some were longer stories about Celia when she was young, about my father, about the house and the land, and the life he hoped we'd share someday. Every letter ended the same way: I won't stop looking. I found the letter from my 8th birthday. Dear Lila, you're 8 today. I wonder if you're learning to ride a bike. I kept your mother's old bicycle in the barn just in case. I hired another investigator. This one says he can find anyone. I gave him what little information I have. He promised results within 6 months. I believe him. I have to. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I'm still looking, Grandpa. The letter from my 13th birthday. Dear Lila 13, a teenager now. I wonder what kind of person you're becoming. I hope you're strong. I hope you're kind. I hope life hasn't been too hard on you. I found you. Finally, after 11 years, I found you. You're at a group home in the city, but when I tried to contact you, they said I'm not authorized. They said I have no legal standing. They said a lot of things that didn't make sense. I'm fighting it. I have a lawyer now. We're going through the proper channels. It takes time, but I won't give up. Please hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming, Grandpa. My 16th birthday. Dear Lila, you moved again. They transferred you to a different facility and didn't tell me. It took 6 months to find you. Every time I get close, something blocks me. Paperwork gets lost. Caseworkers can't be reached. The system says one thing, then another. I'm starting to think someone doesn't want us to find each other. Someone with power, one who benefits from keeping us apart. But I won't stop, I promise you that. 2 more years and you'll be 18, free. Then no one can keep you from coming home. I'm waiting, sweetheart. I'll always be waiting. Grandpa. I pulled out the last box and found the final envelope. The postmark was from September, just 6 weeks ago. The handwriting was shakier than the others, harder to read. Dear Lila, you're 18 now, an adult, free from the system that kept us apart. I don't have much time left. The doctors say my heart is failing. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm only afraid I'll die before you know the truth. I failed you, Lila. I failed your father. I failed Celia. I let bad people do bad things, and I didn't fight hard enough to stop them. But I'm leaving you everything, the land, the house, the evidence, and I'm leaving you this, the knowledge that you were loved every day, every single day for 16 years you were loved. Find Hollis. He'll tell you what I couldn't. Be strong, sweetheart. Be stronger than I was. I'm proud of you. I always was. Grandpa Warren. I set the letter down carefully like it might break. I counted the envelopes. All of them. Every single one. 247 letters. 16 years of trying to reach me. Of refusing to give up. Of loving someone he'd never met. I pressed my hands against my eyes and tried to breathe through the weight pressing on my chest. For 16 years, I told myself I was alone. That I came from nothing. that the reason no one came for me was because I wasn't worth coming for. But I'd been wrong. Someone had been coming. He'd been fighting for me every single day, writing to me, thinking about me, building a home for me. He just never made it in time. I looked at the pile of returned letters spread across Warren's bed and thought about all the things that had kept us apart. Distance, bureaucracy, bad luck, or maybe something worse. Find Hollis, Warren had written. He'll tell you what I couldn't. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains, turning the sky pink and gold. The land stretched out in every direction, 285 acres of earth that had been mine before I even knew it existed. Below, I could see Hollis by the barn working on something I couldn't identify from this distance. I took Warren's last letter and went downstairs. The air outside was colder now, sharp with the promise of frost. I walked across the gravel yard toward the barn. My shadow stretched long and thin in the fading light. Hollis looked up when he heard my footsteps. He set down the wrench he'd been holding and straightened slowly like a man whose back had been complaining for years. You found them, he said. It wasn't a question. I held up the letter. He said you'd tell me the rest. Hollis wiped his hands on a rag and glanced toward the house then the road like he was checking for something. Or someone. Not here, he said quietly. Too open. Inside. I followed him through the large barn doors. Inside it smelled like hay and old wood and motor oil. Tools hung on pegboards. A tractor sat in the corner covered with a tarp. Everything organized with the same precision I'd seen in Warren's house. Hollis pulled the doors closed behind us and turned on a single overhead light. It cast long shadows across the floor. Warren told me if anything happened to him, I should show you something. But only you. He made me promise. Hollis walked to the back of the barn to a section of floor where the boards looked newer than the rest. He built this the year your father died. Been here for 22 years and nobody knows about it except me. And now you. He knelt down and pried up 3 planks with practiced ease. Underneath was a metal hatch with a combination lock. Hollis spun the dial right, and pulled it open. Below was a concrete room maybe 8 feet deep. A ladder led down into darkness. Wait here, Hollis said. He descended the ladder and I heard him moving around below. A light flickered on. Okay, come down. I climbed down carefully. The room was small, maybe 10 by 10 feet. Concrete walls, a single bulb hanging from a wire, and against one wall, a fireproof box. Warren spent 20 years gathering evidence, Hollis said quietly. He was terrified to use it, terrified of what might happen if he went public. But he wanted you to have it, wanted you to know the truth about what happened to your father. He opened the fireproof box. Inside were folders, documents, photographs, and a DVD in a paper sleeve. Your father's name was Graham Hayes, Hollis began. He married your mother when she was 19. Good man, worked construction, helped Warren with the farm. He loved Celia more than anything, and he loved you. I picked up one of the folders. Inside were photographs of a car wreck, a sedan crumpled at the bottom of a cliff. Metal twisted windows shattered. That was your father's car, Hollis said. Mountain Pass Road, October 2002. You were barely a year old. What happened? Police said he lost control, went off the cliff, driver error. Hollis pulled out another document, a police report. Case closed in 48 hours. But this, he handed me a notarized statement from a mechanic named William Torres. I read it slowly. William Torres certified that I examined the vehicle belonging to Graham Hayes on October 15, 2002. The brake lines showed evidence of deliberate cutting, not wear. This was not mechanical failure. This was sabotage. The paper shook in my hands. Someone killed him, I whispered. Yeah, someone did. Hollis pulled out more documents. In 2002, a company called Merrick Mining discovered a silver deposit under this land. Big one, worth tens of millions, maybe more. They approached Warren with an offer $2 million for mineral rights. Did Warren want to sell? He was thinking about it. But your father, Graham, he'd worked construction, knew geology. He looked at the surveys Merrick provided and found problems. He thought they were lying about the size of the deposit, that it was worth way more than $2 million. Hollis spread out more papers, geological surveys, financial projections, letters. Graham told Warren not to sign anything, said they needed an independent assessment. 3 months later, Graham was dead. I stared at the photographs of the wrecked car, at the mechanic's statement, at the police report that had closed the case before any real investigation could happen. Warren tried to go to the police, Hollis continued, but the police chief back then, man named Landry, shut him down, refused to reopen the case. Warren pushed harder, threatened to go to state police, and that's when he pulled out bank statements. Wire transfers from an offshore account to Police Chief Landry's personal checking. $80,000 over 3 years, starting 2 months before my father died. Merrick bought the police, I said. Yeah, and when Warren realized that, he got scared, real scared. Hollis sat down on an overturned crate. Your mother, Celia, she fell apart after Graham died. She was 22, widowed with a baby. She tried to hold on, but she couldn't. Got pneumonia 2 years later. Warren always said it wasn't the pneumonia that killed her. It was grief. And me. Warren tried to keep you, but he was 72 years old, alone. The farm was struggling. Social services said he was too old, too unstable. They put you in temporary foster care while he got his affairs in order. But it wasn't temporary. No, every time Warren tried to get you back, something went wrong. Paperwork got lost. You got transferred. Caseworkers couldn't find your file. For 16 years, it was always the same bureaucracy, red tape, bad luck. Hollis looked at me directly. Warren didn't believe in bad luck. He thought someone was interfering. Someone who wanted you far away from this land. Someone who wanted Warren too broken and afraid to fight. Dalton Merrick, I said, and then on. Warren could never prove it. But he never stopped believing it either. Hollis gestured at the box. So he started collecting evidence, everything he could find about Merrick, about the people who'd crossed him, about suspicious deaths and payoffs and corruption. He pulled out a typed list, 7 names, 7 dates, 7 causes of death. Graham Hayes, 2002. Car accident, William Torres, 2005. House fire, Rebecca Ann Stone, 2010. Drowning, Marcus Delacroix, 2015. Fall from scaffolding. 3 more names I didn't recognize. All between 1998 and 2020. All dead. All ruled accidental. At the bottom of the page, Warren's handwriting. All refused to sell land to Merrick Mining. All died within 6 months of refusal. But 8 people, I whispered. That we know of, Hollis said. I looked up at him, and Warren just collected this. For 20 years. He was afraid. Merrick has connections everywhere. Judges, politicians, business leaders. Warren thought if he went public, the evidence would disappear like everything else. So he waited, kept gathering proof, hoping that someday, Hollis trailed off, hoping that someday you'd come home and be brave enough to finish what he couldn't. I stared at the documents spread around me. 20 years of careful investigation. 20 years of living with the knowledge that a murderer walked free. 20 years of fear and guilt and helpless rage. There's one more thing, Hollis said quietly. He pulled out the DVD. Warren recorded this 2 months before he died. He made me promise I'd show it to you. We climbed out of the hidden room and Hollis led me to a small office in the barn. He had an old laptop there covered in sawdust. He wiped it clean, opened it, and slid the disc in. The screen flickered. Then Warren appeared. He was sitting in the living room I'd walked through just hours ago. He looked thinner than in the photographs. Older. Sick. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted the camera, but his eyes were clear, and when he spoke, his voice was strong. Lila. Hearing him say my name, hearing his voice for the first time made my throat close up completely. If you're watching this, I'm gone, and you're home, and I'm sorry, so damn sorry that I couldn't be here to meet you. He paused, gathering himself. I want to tell you about your father. Graham Hayes was the best man I ever knew. He loved your mother with everything he had, and when you were born, Warren's voice cracked, he held you like you were the most precious thing in the world. He'd sit for hours just watching you sleep. He had plans for you, things he wanted to teach you, places he wanted to take you. He was going to be an amazing father. Warren wiped his eyes. Dalton Merrick killed him. I can't prove it in a way that would hold up in court, but I know it. In my bones, I know it. Graham stood up to Merrick, said no when everyone else was too afraid to say anything, and Merrick had him murdered for it. He leaned forward, looking directly into the camera, looking at me. For 20 years, I was too afraid to fight, too broken. I told myself I was protecting you by keeping you away from here, that if Merrick knew about you, he'd hurt you too. But I was wrong, Lila. I should have fought harder. I should have brought you home no matter what it cost. His hands clenched into fists. Instead, I let you grow up alone. I let you believe no one wanted you. And that's a failure I'll carry to my grave. Warren took a shaky breath. This land is yours now. The house. All the evidence I collected. Do with it what you think is right. But be careful. Merrick is dangerous. He's killed before. He'll kill again if he thinks someone's threatening what he's built. He looked tired now, old beyond his years. Find people you trust. Don't try to fight this alone. And know this, Lila, every day for 16 years I thought about you. Every day I loved you. You were never unwanted, never. His eyes glistened. I'm proud of you, for surviving, for making it here, for being strong enough to face the truth. Welcome home, sweetheart. Welcome home. The screen went black. I sat in the quiet barn surrounded by the smell of hay and old wood, watching dust motes drift through the light from the single bulb. Hollis didn't say anything, just sat beside me and waited. Finally, I spoke. What do I do? That's not for me to say, kid. You're 18, you're the owner. It's your choice, am I choose? If I go to the police, new sheriff's different from Landry, cleaner. But Merrick still has lawyers, money, connections all the way to the state capitol. FBI. Maybe if you had a federal crime, corruption, racketeering, this. He gestured at the evidence. This might be enough, or it might not be, I don't know. I stood up and walked to the barn doors, pushed them open. Outside, the sky had gone fully dark. Stars were appearing, more stars than I'd ever seen in my life, thick and bright and impossibly numerous. 285 acres stretched out in front of me, invisible in the darkness, but present, solid, real, mine. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Unknown number, I answered. Miss Hayes. The voice was smooth, professional, male. My name is Dalton Merrick. I'm a local businessman. I wanted to offer my condolences about Warren. He was well respected in this community. I didn't speak. I also wanted to reach out because I understand you've inherited his property. That's a substantial responsibility for someone your age. 285 acres requires significant resources to maintain. Taxes alone are considerable. What do you want? I'd like to make you an offer, a generous one. $500,000 for the land and mineral rights. Cash. You could take that money and build a life anywhere you choose. No obligations. No pressure. I looked back at Hollis, who was watching me from inside the barn. I'm not selling. There was a pause. When Merrick spoke again, his voice had lost all warmth. Miss Hayes, I don't think you understand your situation. This property requires expertise you don't possess. It would be in your best interest to I said no. Another pause. Longer this time. I see. Well, I'll give you time to reconsider, but don't take too long. These offers don't stay on the table indefinitely. And living alone so far from town, he let the words hang. It can be dangerous. Old houses have problems. Electrical fires, gas leaks, accidents happen. The line went dead. I stood there with the phone in my hand, my heart pounding. Hollis came up beside me. That was him, wasn't it? I nodded. What did he say? He wants to buy the land. He threatened me when I refused. Hollis's face went hard as stone. That's his pattern. Money first, then threats. Then he didn't finish the sentence. Then people die. I finished for him. We stood there in the darkness, looking at the house Warren had maintained for 16 years. The house where he'd written those letters. The house that was supposed to be my home. I thought about my father 22 years ago, driving down a mountain road with cut brake lines. I thought about 7 other people who'd said no to Dalton Merrick. I thought about Warren, too afraid to fight, watching from a distance while I grew up alone. And I thought about who I wanted to be. I'm not selling, Hung, I said quietly. He'll come after you. I know. He might kill you. Maybe, but I'm tired of being afraid, Hollis. I spent 16 years believing I didn't matter, that I was nobody. Now I find out I had a grandfather who loved me, a father who died protecting this land, a mother who loved me until grief killed her. Only I looked at the house. If I run now, if I sell and disappear, what does that say about their lives, about what they sacrificed? It says you're smart, that you survived. No, I shook my head. It says I let a murderer win, again. Just like Warren did. Hollis was quiet for a long moment. Your father said almost the exact same thing, right before he confronted Merrick about those geological surveys. And then Merrick killed him. Yeah, he did. I took a deep breath of cold Montana air. Then I'd better be smarter than my father was, and braver than my grandfather, because I'm not leaving. This is my home, and I'm going to fight for it. Hollis studied me in the darkness. Then slowly he smiled. Warren would be proud of you, kid. Scared out of his mind, but proud. Will you help me? Yeah, I'll help you, but we're going to need more than just the 2 of us. He pulled out his phone. I know some people, good people. People who've been waiting years for someone to stand up to Merrick. As Hollis made calls, I stood on the porch of my house, and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Warren was watching. I hoped he knew I'd come home, and I hoped he knew I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't sleep that first night. I lay in the bed Warren had prepared 16 years ago in the pink room with dresses I'd never worn, staring at the ceiling and listening to every sound. The house settling, wind in the trees, the distant call of an owl. Every creak made my heart jump. Every shadow seemed to move. I kept expecting headlights, kept expecting the smell of smoke. At dawn, I gave up and went downstairs. The kitchen was cold. I found coffee in the cabinet recently purchased. Hollis must have stocked it and stood by the window while it brewed, watching the sun turn the mountains from black to purple to gold. 285 acres of land that a man had killed for. Land that was mine now. I poured coffee into Warren's mug and tried to think clearly. Dalton Merrick wanted this property. He'd murdered my father for it 22 years ago. He'd threatened me last night. And according to that list, he'd killed 7 other people who stood in his way. Going to the local police felt useless. Even if the new sheriff was honest, Merrick had lawyers, resources. He'd find ways to make evidence disappear. The FBI was the right move. Federal jurisdiction, real power. But that would take time. And Merrick had made it clear I didn't have time. I was on my second cup of coffee when I heard a truck on the gravel drive. My whole body went rigid. I set down the mug and moved toward the drawer where Hollis had shown me Warren kept a revolver. But it was just Hollis's truck. He parked by the porch and came in carrying a paper bag that smelled like bacon and fresh biscuits. "Figured you didn't sleep much," he said, setting it on the table. "Nell made breakfast. Nell Whitmore, runs the diner in town. She knew Warren for 40 years. Knew your mother, too." He pulled out wrapped sandwiches. "She wants to meet you. Whole town's talking about Warren's granddaughter showing up." I unwrapped one of the sandwiches, eggs, bacon, cheese on a homemade biscuit. Still warm. I hadn't realized how hungry I was. "What are they saying? That you look just like Celia. That you're too young for this place. That Merrick probably already made you an offer." Hollis poured coffee from a thermos. Small towns run on gossip. "Did you tell anyone about the evidence?" "No, and don't you either. Not yet." He sat across from me. "I made calls this morning. Got through to FBI field office in Helena. Agent named Vera Sutton, Organized Crime Division." My pulse quickened. "What did she say?" "She knows Merrick. They've been investigating his company for environmental violations, possible fraud. But they've never had enough for criminal charges." Hollis took a sip of coffee. When I mentioned what Warren collected, she got very interested. Said if it's legitimate, it could open a major case. "When can she get here?" 6 hours. She's driving from Helena." He looked at me seriously. "But Lila, you need to understand, an FBI investigation takes months. During that time, Merrick is going to know something's happening. He's going to escalate." "You mean he'll try to kill me?" "Yeah, that's exactly what I mean." I finished the sandwich and wiped my hands. Outside, morning sun lit up the fields. It was beautiful, peaceful, the kind of morning that made you believe the world was fundamentally good. But I knew better now. What do we do until she gets here? We stay smart, stay visible, don't go anywhere alone. Hollis stood. "Come on, there's something else you should see." I followed him back to the barn. In daylight, I could see how meticulously Warren had maintained everything. Fence posts straight, barn doors perfectly hung, even the gravel carefully graded. He'd taken care of this place like it was sacred. Inside, Hollis moved aside a tarp and revealed something I'd missed in the darkness, a door narrow painted to match the wall. He opened it. Stairs led down. "Warren built this in 2003, Hollis said, flipping a light switch, right after Graham died, paranoid that Merrick might come after him next. We descended into a concrete room about 10 feet square. A metal shelf held supplies, canned food water, batteries, first aid kit, blankets. And on the top shelf, a lockbox. Hollis opened it. Inside were duplicate copies of all the documents sealed in waterproof bags, a flash drive, and a handgun. "Warren wasn't violent," Hollis said quietly, "but he wasn't stupid. He knew if things went bad." He pulled out the revolver. "You know how to use one?" I shook my head. "I'll teach you. Not because you'll need it, but because you should know." He showed me how to load it, how to hold it, how to aim. The weight of it in my hand felt wrong, heavy with implications I didn't want to accept. But I learned anyway. "This room's got supplies for 3 days, Hollis explained. "Door locks from inside. Only Warren and I knew about it. Now you." I looked around the small space. a panic room, a hiding place for when everything went wrong. Warren had built it 21 years ago. I hoped I wouldn't need it. We spent the morning doing normal things. Hollis showed me the property boundaries, the well house, the equipment shed. Explained what Warren had been doing with the land. It felt surreal walking in sunshine talking about fencing and water rights, while knowing that somewhere nearby a man who'd killed 8 people was deciding what to do about me. At 11, we drove into town. Redwood Hollow looked different in full daylight. Still small, but more alive. People walked on sidewalks. Cars parked outside the general store. The diner had a dozen trucks out front. We went inside. Red vinyl booths, chrome counter with stools, jukebox playing old country. It smelled like coffee and bacon grease and something that felt like home. Every head turned when we entered. A woman behind the counter, 60s gray hair, pulled back eyes that had seen everything, looked at me and went completely still. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. She came around fast, wiping her hands on her apron, and stopped right in front of me. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're Celia's girl." I nodded. She pulled me into a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. She smelled like vanilla and coffee and safety. "I'm Nell," she said when she finally let go. "Knew your mother from the day she was born. And Warren," her voice broke, "that man talked about you every single day for 16 years. Every day." She grabbed my hand and pulled me to a corner booth. "Sit, I'll get food, coffee, whatever you need on the house." Hollis and I slid in. Nell disappeared and returned with plates I hadn't ordered: pancakes, eggs, bacon, everything, and 2 mugs of steaming coffee. "Now," she said, sitting across from us, "tell me." So I did. Not everything, not about the evidence or Merrick's threat, but enough. Growing up in Riverside, the letter from Barrett Sullivan, the bus ride, the house, the 247 letters. Nell cried through most of it. "Warren tried so hard," she said, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "Every lawyer in 3 counties. Called social services until they stopped answering. Spent everything he had on investigators. And every time the system said no." "Did he ever say why?" Nell's expression darkened. "He had theories. Thought someone powerful was blocking him. Someone who wanted you far from here." "Merrick," I said quietly. Nell glanced around the diner, then leaned closer. "Careful with that name. Dalton Merrick employs half this county. His mine supports 200 families. He donates to schools, churches, every charity. On paper, he's a pillar of the community. But people who cross him end up hurt, or ruined, or dead." She kept her voice low. "I can't prove anything about Graham's death, but I know after it happened, Warren was terrified. Barely left his property for years. Something in him broke. I thought about the video. I was too afraid." "Did my mother know what happened to my father?" "She suspected, but she was grieving, 22 with a baby, no husband. She didn't have strength left to fight." Nell squeezed my hand. "She loved you so much, honey. If she'd lived, she would have found a way." We sat quietly. Around us, the diner returned to normal rhythms, conversations, clinking silverware, the hiss of the griddle. Then the door opened. Every conversation stopped. A man walked in. Mid-50s, expensive gray suit, silver hair. He moved like someone who owned every room he entered. 2 younger men in suits followed, hard eyes, hands that looked like they'd done damage. Dalton Merrick. He scanned the diner until he found me. Then he smiled. "Miss Hayes," he said, walking over. "What a pleasant surprise." Hollis tensed. Nell's hand tightened on mine. Merrick stopped at our booth, his men flanking him. "I hope to run into you. Saves me the drive." His voice was friendly, warm. "Have you had time to reconsider my offer? I told you last night I'm not selling." His smile didn't waver. "Disappointing. I was hoping you'd be reasonable. Rural land values are very unstable, especially properties with complications." "What complications?" "Tax issues, structural problems, environmental concerns." He tilted his head. "It would be unfortunate if you invested time and money only to discover the property is worthless." I stood up. Hollis stood with me. "Thank you for your concern, but I'm not interested." Merrick's smile faded. His eyes went cold. "You're very young, Miss Hayes. You don't understand how things work in small communities. We take care of our own. But outsiders," he let it hang, "outsiders sometimes find life here difficult." "I'm not an outsider. This was my grandfather's home. Warren was a good man, but very isolated in his final years. Some might say paranoid. I'd hate for you to inherit his delusions along with his land." Nell stood, putting herself between us. "That's enough, Dalton. The girl said no. Leave her alone." Merrick looked at Nell with something like amusement. Nell, always protecting strays. You did the same for Celia. Didn't help her much, did it? Get out of my diner. For a moment, I thought he might argue, but then he stepped back. Of course, my apologies. He looked at me once more. My offer stands, Miss Hayes, but not indefinitely. Think carefully about your future. Living alone out there. He glanced toward the window toward the mountains. Accidents happen. He left. His men followed. The diner stayed silent for a full minute. Then conversations resumed quieter, now nervous. I sat back down, legs shaking. Son of a bitch, Nell muttered. She looked at Hollis. Get her somewhere safe. FBI's coming this afternoon. Good. Until then, she doesn't leave your sight. We left through the back, Hollis's idea, and took a different route home, watching for anyone following. No one did, but I kept checking anyway. Back at the house, Hollis locked everything, set the revolver on the kitchen table. If someone comes through that door and I'm not here, you need to defend yourself. I stared at the gun. I know you hate this, but Merrick just threatened you in public, in front of witnesses. He's not hiding anymore. At 3:30, a dark sedan pulled up. Federal plates. Agent Vera Sutton stepped out. Mid-40s sharp suit eyes that cataloged everything, the house, the barn, the tree line, us. Miss Hayes. She walked to the porch. Agent Sutton, thank you for reaching out. Inside, I showed her everything. The letters, Warren's video, the fireproof box, police reports, bank statements. The list of 8 names, she went through it methodically. Photographed documents, made notes, asked precise questions. When she finished, she looked up. This is substantial. If authentic, and I'll need to verify some details, this could support federal charges. Corruption, racketeering, possibly 8 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. How long? To verify, a few weeks. To build a prosecutable case, months. My stomach dropped. I don't have months. I know, that's why I'm opening a preliminary investigation immediately. Gives me authority to interview witnesses, subpoena records, apply pressure. She leaned forward. It won't be enough to arrest Merrick yet, but it'll make him nervous, make him think twice. Will it keep me safe? She hesitated. I can't guarantee that, but I can have agents monitor this property. I can notify local law enforcement you're under federal protection, and I can move fast. What do you need? Everything you showed me. I'll take originals as evidence. Keep copies somewhere safe, somewhere off this property. She closed her notebook. And be smart. Don't confront Merrick. Don't go anywhere alone. If he approaches again, record it. Document everything. She stood to leave, then paused. Miss Hayes, your grandfather collected incredible evidence, but he waited too long to use it. He died before justice could happen. Her voice softened. Don't make the same mistake. If you feel unsafe, call me immediately. Don't try to be a hero. She left her card and drove away. Hollis and I stood on the porch watching her taillights disappear. So now we wait, I said. Now we wait. But we didn't have to wait long. At 1 a.m., I woke to the smell of smoke. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the roar. I ran to the window. The barn was on fire. Not a small fire. A massive one, flames 50 feet high, orange and white, and consuming everything. I grabbed my phone, ran downstairs, dialed 911 with shaking hands. 911, what's your emergency? Fire, barn fire, 348 Maple Ridge Road. Fire department's on the way. Are you safe? Yes, but I stopped. In the glow of the flames, I saw someone standing at the edge of the driveway, just standing there, watching. I couldn't see their face, but I knew. Ma'am, someone's here, I whispered. Someone set this. Stay inside, lock your doors. Police are coming. I hung up, called Hollis. He answered instantly. I see it. I'm coming. Don't go outside. I ran through the house, checking every lock, every window. My hands shook so badly I could barely work the deadbolts. The figure at the driveway was gone. I grabbed the revolver, made sure it was loaded like Hollis had taught me. Then I sat on the floor back against the wall where I could see both doors. And I waited. Volunteer fire department arrived in 12 minutes. By then the barn was completely gone. All they could do was keep it from spreading to the house. Hollis arrived right after. Then a county sheriff's deputy. Then Agent Sutton, who must have been staying nearby. By dawn, only smoking ruins remained. The fire chief confirmed arson. Accelerant poured around the perimeter, lit in multiple places. Professional. The deputy took my statement, asked about enemies. I told him everything. Merrick's offers, the threats, all of it. He wrote it down, but his expression said nothing would come of it. Agent Sutton pulled me aside. This changes things. This is arson, attempted intimidation, maybe attempted murder. I can move faster now. How much faster? I'm interviewing Merrick today, putting him on notice that he's under federal investigation. She looked at the ruins. But you can't stay here. Not alone. Not until we have him in custody. Where do I go? Friends, family. I almost laughed. No. Nell stepped forward. She'd arrived with coffee and food no one was eating. She stays with me. I've got a spare room. And Merrick won't try anything at my place. Too public. I can't put you in danger. Honey, I've been in danger my whole life just living in this town. Nell put her arm around me. You're not alone anymore. Let us help. I looked at Hollis. He nodded. It's smart. Until Sutton can move, you need to be visible. Somewhere with witnesses. I looked at the house Warren had kept for 16 years. The place that was supposed to be my home. What about Warren's evidence? The room in the barn? Basement's intact, Hollis said. Concrete and steel. Whatever's down there survived. Small mercies. I went inside and packed. Not the duffel from Riverside, a proper suitcase from Warren's closet. Filled it with clothes from the room he'd prepared. Took the photo of Celia holding me. Took Warren's last letter. On my way out, I stopped in the kitchen. Ran my hand along the table where he'd worked his crosswords. I'm coming back, I said to the empty room. I promise. Nell's house was small but warm. 1 story, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon. She set me up in the spare room, floral wallpaper, handmade quilt pictures of grandchildren. Bathrooms across the hall. Help yourself to anything. And try to sleep. You look like you're about to collapse. I didn't think I could sleep, but the moment I lay down, I was gone. 14 hours straight. When I woke, it was late afternoon. Voices in the kitchen, Nell talking to someone. I got up and walked out. Hollis sat at the table. Across from him was a young man in a deputy's uniform I hadn't seen before. Late 20s, sandy hair. He stood when I entered. Miss Hayes, Deputy Trent Bishop, I wanted to check on you. I poured coffee. I'm alive. My barn isn't. How do you think I'm doing? He looked uncomfortable. Fair enough, I'm sorry. Fire chief confirmed arson. We're investigating. Will you arrest Merrick? We don't have evidence he was personally involved. He threatened me. Twice, there were witnesses. Threatening words aren't proof of arson. If we find who lit the fire, if we can connect them to Merrick. He trailed off. I sat down heavily. So he gets away with it. Not necessarily. Agent Sutton interviewed him this morning. Told him he's under federal investigation. That might slow him down. Or make him escalate. Bishop didn't argue. We sat quietly. Hollis and Bishop discussed fire patterns and evidence. I didn't listen. I was thinking about Warren. 20 years being afraid. 20 years gathering evidence but never using it. I was thinking about my father with cut brake lines. I was thinking about 7 other names on that list. And I was thinking about those letters. Every birthday, every Christmas, all returned. I set down my coffee. I'm not running, I said. Everyone looked at me. Lila, Hollis started. I'm not running. Merrick wants me scared. Wants me to sell and disappear. That's what worked with Warren. But Warren spent 20 years afraid and it didn't save anyone. Not my father, not those 7 others, not even himself. I stood. I'm 18. I don't have experience or money or power, but I have one thing he doesn't expect. I have nothing to lose. I grew up with nothing. The worst he can do is kill me. And honestly, I've spent 16 years believing I didn't matter anyway. You matter, Nell said firmly. Then let me act like it. Let me fight. Bishop leaned forward. Miss Hayes, you can't fight Dalton Merrick alone. He has resources. I'm not alone. I looked at each of them. I have you. I have Agent Sutton. I have Warren's evidence. And I have the truth. What are you thinking? Hollis asked. I thought about small towns, about gossip, about how information spreads. We go public, not just with FBI that takes too long. We go public here, in Redwood Hollow. We show everyone what Merrick did, make it impossible for him to hide. That's dangerous, Bishop said. If you accuse him without proof that holds up in court, he'll sue you for defamation. I have proof, 20 years of it, and if it's not enough for conviction, then at least people will know. At least when something happens to me, they'll know why. Hollis studied me, then smiled, sad, proud. You sound like your father. Graham said almost exactly that, right before Merrick killed him. The words were cold water. I know, I said, but maybe this time it'll work. That night, I called Agent Sutton. She didn't like the plan. Going public before we have an airtight case could jeopardize the investigation. Merrick will destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses. He already burned my barn. How much worse can it get? She sighed. Point taken. Okay, if you're doing this, let me help. I'll provide verified copies of everything. That way you have federal backing. When will you arrest him? Soon. We're building the case as fast as possible, but I need a few more weeks. I don't have weeks. I know. Her voice softened. I know, Lila. Just be careful, please. We hung up. I sat in Nell's spare room with the quilt around my shoulders, looking at the photo of Celia holding baby me. My mother had been 22 in this picture. So young, she looked tired but happy. I wondered what she'd tell me to do. Fight or run, but I already knew. She'd name me Lila. It meant night, darkness, but night doesn't last forever. And I was going to make sure Dalton Merrick's darkness ended. The plan came together over the next 2 days. Agent Sutton sent encrypted files, verified documents with FBI case numbers, bank transfers, police reports. Everything stamped official. Town council meeting, Nell suggested. Thursday night, open to public. Anyone can speak. Merrick sits on the council, Bishop said. He'll shut you down. Not if we live stream it, I said. Facebook, YouTube. If it's public and recorded, he can't silence it without looking guilty. Hollis smiled. Small towns love drama. Half of Redwood Hollow will tune in. And once it's out there, Nell added, you can't unring that bell. Bishop leaned back. If you do this, he'll retaliate. Legally if he's smart. Other ways if he's desperate. He already burned my barn. Could get worse, but Bishop paused. I'll be there. In uniform. Body cam recording. If he threatens you in front of a deputy, that's a crime I can act on. I looked at each of them. Thursday, then. Nell squeezed my hand. Warren would be so proud, honey. I hope she was right. The next 3 days were preparation. Agent Sutton coached me by phone. Stick to verified facts. Don't speculate. Let documents speak. Hollis helped organize the timeline. 8 deaths across 20 years. All connected by refusal to sell to Merrick Mining. Nell spread the word. Warren's granddaughter is speaking at Thursday's council meeting. Worth hearing. In a town of 900, that was enough. By Wednesday night, half of Redwood Hollow knew something big was coming. And so did Dalton Merrick. Wednesday, 7 p.m., he called. I let it go to voicemail. Miss Hayes, this is Dalton Merrick. I've heard you're planning to speak at tomorrow's council meeting. I strongly advise against it. Making unsubstantiated accusations has serious legal consequences. Defamation, slander. These aren't trivial for someone in your financial position. I'm offering one final chance. Sell the land, take the money, move on. This is the last time I'll be this generous. His voice was calm, reasonable, terrifying in its certainty that I'd fold. I saved the voicemail, sent it to Sutton. Then I tried to sleep. I couldn't. I lay there running through what I'd say. The words had to be perfect. My name is Lila Hayes. My grandfather was Warren Frost. My father was Graham Hayes. And I'm here to tell you how they died. Around midnight, Nell appeared with tea. Figured you'd be awake. We sat on the edge of the bed, drinking in silence. I'm scared, I admitted. Good, you should be. Nell set down her mug. You know what Celia said before she died? Take care of my baby. Don't let them make her afraid. I think she knew, even then. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. That man's terrorized this town for 30 years. Someone needs to stand up. If it's you, then you won't stand alone. I hugged her. Thank you. Thank me when this is over and you're still breathing. Thursday arrived cold and clear. I dressed carefully. Navy dress conservative. Something that said credible. Serious. Hollis picked me up at 5:30. Agent Sutton's in town, he said as we drove. Won't be at the meeting. FBI can't be seen influencing local politics, but she's watching. Backup ready if things go sideways. Define sideways. If Merrick tries violence, federal agents are 2 minutes out. The town hall was small brick on Main Street. By the time we arrived, the lot was half full. Deputy Bishop met us at the door. Full uniform body camera visible. Big turnout. People are curious. Is Merrick here? Not yet, but he will be. We went inside. Meeting room had folding chairs facing a long table with 5 council seats. Merrick's nameplate sat center. Mayor Pro Tem. Of course. People filed in. Some I recognized from the diner. Others were strangers. They looked at me with curiosity, suspicion, some with sympathy. Nell sat beside me, holding my hand. At 5:58, the door opened. Dalton Merrick walked in. Charcoal suit, expensive watch, confident smile. He greeted people by name, shook hands, the perfect community leader. His eyes found mine. The smile stayed. His eyes went ice cold. He took his seat. The other council members settled in. At 6 p.m. exactly, Merrick called the meeting to order. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Several items on tonight's agenda: fire truck budget zoning variance, Main Street updates. But first, citizen comments. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name. I stood. Every eye turned to me. I'd like to speak. Merrick's expression didn't change. Of course, please come forward. I walked to the podium, set down my folder, pulled out my phone, propped it up, camera facing me. I'm live streaming this, for the record. One council member frowned. Is that allowed? Public meeting, public record, Bishop said from the door. She's within her rights. Mom, Merrick's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Proceed. I took a breath. My name is Lila Hayes. I'm 18. 3 weeks ago, I inherited 285 acres from my grandfather, Warren Frost. Some of you knew him. Some remember my mother, Celia, and my father, Graham Hayes. People shifted. Someone whispered. My father died 22 years ago. Car accident on Mountain Pass Road. Police ruled it driver error. I pulled out the mechanic's statement. But this sworn statement from the mechanic who examined the wreck says the brake lines were cut. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Merrick leaned forward. Miss Hayes, that's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence beyond a 20-year-old statement from a deceased mechanic? I do. I pulled out bank records. These show wire transfers from an offshore account linked to Merrick Mining to Police Chief Landry's personal account. $80,000 over 3 years, starting 2 months before my father died. The murmurs got louder. A councilwoman picked up the papers. Her face went pale. These have FBI case numbers. Yes, the FBI opened an investigation last week. They've verified authenticity. I looked at Merrick. My father refused to sell our land. 3 months later, he was dead. Chief Landry closed the investigation in 48 hours. Merrick's face was stone. You're suggesting I killed your father over a land dispute. I'm presenting facts. I pulled out the list. Graham Hayes, 2002, William Torres, 2005, Rebecca Ann Stone, 2010, Marcus Delacroix, 2015. 4 more names. 8 people total. All refused to sell land to your company. All died within 6 months. All ruled accidental. The room erupted. Merrick slammed his gavel. Order. This is slander designed to... It's not slander. I held up the folder. Warren Frost spent 20 years documenting everything. The FBI has it. And now everyone watching this live stream does too. I looked at my phone. Viewer count climbing. 300, 400, 500. Merrick saw it. His face flushed red. You have no proof I was involved. You have coincidences from a man who was mentally unstable. My grandfather wasn't unstable. He was terrified. Of you. I pulled out the video transcript. Before he died, he recorded a statement. He names you specifically. Explains how you killed my father, paid off the police chief, systematically murdered anyone in your way for 30 years. Where is this video? FBI custody, along with everything else. I looked around the room. You've controlled this town through fear for decades. Killed 8 people we know of. Maybe more. You got away with it because everyone was too afraid to speak. I pointed at the phone at the hundreds watching. But I'm not afraid. My grandfather was afraid and it didn't save him. My father wasn't afraid and you killed him. So here I am, speaking up, putting everything on record. Because someone has to. Dead silence. Merrick stared with pure hatred. You've made a terrible mistake, Miss Hayes. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You just slandered me on camera. My lawyers will destroy you. You'll lose everything. Maybe, but everyone knows the truth now. And you can't kill truth, Mr. Merrick, no matter how many people you kill. He opened his mouth. The door burst open. Agent Vera Sutton walked in with 4 agents and FBI windbreakers. Dalton Merrick, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and corruption of public officials. You have the right to remain silent. Chaos. Agents handcuffing Merrick, him shouting about lawyers, people filming on phones, council members arguing. I just stood at the podium numb. Nell appeared, pulled me into a hug. You did it, honey, you did it. Merrick was arrested, but that didn't mean convicted. But as I looked around at people who'd lived under his shadow for decades now, watching him led away in handcuffs, I realized something. It didn't matter if he went to prison. What mattered was someone had finally said no. Someone had finally fought back. And everyone had seen it. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Merrick's lawyers tried everything: bail hearings, motions to dismiss, claims of prosecutorial misconduct. But Agent Sutton's case was ironclad. Warren's evidence, combined with federal forensic accounting and new witness testimony, was overwhelming. In January, Merrick's lead attorney quit, said he couldn't defend the indefensible. In February, 2 former employees came forward with testimony about intimidation and bribery. The dam broke. People who'd been silent for decades started talking. In March, Dalton Merrick accepted a plea deal: 8 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, corruption, money laundering. 8 consecutive life sentences. No parole. I attended the sentencing with Nell Hollis Bishop and half of Redwood Hollow. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I walked to the podium and looked at Merrick. He looked smaller now, older, broken. "You took my father before I could remember him," I said. "You took 16 years I could have had with my grandfather. You killed 7 other people for profit. You terrorized an entire community." I paused. "But you failed, because my grandfather never stopped fighting. He built a case against you even when he was too afraid to use it. He made sure the truth would survive." I looked at the judge. Warren Frost wrote me 247 letters over 16 years, all returned. But in his last letter, he said, be stronger than I was." I looked back at Merrick. "I don't forgive you, but I won't let you haunt my future. You're going to prison for life. And I'm going to turn that land you killed for into something good, something that helps people, something you can't touch." The judge sentenced him to 8 consecutive life terms. He'd die in prison, and I'd go home. Spring came to Redwood Hollow like a promise. Snow melted, wildflowers appeared, and on 285 acres that had seen so much grief, new life began. I used Warren's savings plus settlement money from Merrick's seized assets to rebuild the barn. Not like the old one, better, bigger, with workshop space and storage. Hollis helped design it. Bishop helped build. Nell organized work parties where half the town showed up. By May, the new barn stood finished. And I started the Warren Frost Scholarship Fund. Every year, 5 kids who were aging out of foster care would get $5,000 each. For college, trade school, just starting over. Because Warren tried for 16 years to bring me home. Now I'd spend my life bringing other lost kids home. The first applications came in June. I read every one, crying through most. So many stories like mine, kids who thought no one wanted them. I chose 5, sent letters, told them about Warren Celia Graham, told them they weren't alone. One evening in late July, I sat on the porch when Hollis's truck pulled up. He got out slowly carrying a folder. "Got something for you." I made room on the swing. He sat and handed me the folder. Inside were photographs, old ones, some color, some black and white. Warren Young standing in front of this house with a woman, my grandmother. Warren and little Celia building a snowman. Warren and teenage Celia laughing. And at the bottom one I'd never seen. Warren holding a baby. Me. Maybe 6 months old. He was smiling a real smile, eyes bright. On the back. "First time holding Lila. Best day of my life." I pressed it to my chest and cried. Hollis put his arm around me. "He got to hold you," he said quietly. "Before everything went bad, before Merrick and the system, he got to hold you. And he loved you from that first moment." I looked at the photo again, at Warren's face, young and hopeful. "Thank you," I whispered. August brought someone new. His name was Callum, Hollis's son. He'd been working construction in Seattle but came home to help with local projects. He showed up one morning in a beat-up truck asking if I needed help with fencing. 29, sandy hair, quiet smile, hands that knew how to build. We worked side by side for 3 days replacing posts and wire. He didn't talk much, didn't ask invasive questions. On the 3rd day, we took a break under an oak tree. "Dad told me what you did," Callum said, standing up to Merrick, the trial, all of it. I shrugged. "I just told the truth. Most people don't. They keep their heads down." He looked at me. "You're brave." "I'm just tired of being afraid." He smiled. "Same thing." Over the next weeks, he kept finding reasons to stop by. Fence to mend, gate to adjust, barn door that stuck. I didn't mind. By September, we were having dinner twice a week. By October, he stayed until midnight talking on the porch under impossible stars. One evening he asked, "Are you staying long-term or is this temporary?" I looked at the land, the house, the barn. This is what I really want. For the first time, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He smiled. Good. I was hoping you'd stick around. Yeah, yeah. He didn't kiss me that night, but he took my hand and we sat there holding on. The anniversary of Warren's death fell on a gray October morning. I drove to Hilltop Cemetery with wildflowers from the property. Warren's grave was simple, just his name dates and beloved grandfather. Next to him, Graham. Beside that, Celia. My whole family together. I sat on the grass between them and pulled out something I'd brought. A leather album, the one Hollis had found last week in Warren's den. Inside were hundreds of photographs. Me at age 4 walking into a school. Me at 7 playing in a park. Me at 12 sitting alone on a bench. Warren had hired investigators to photograph me for 16 years. Every birthday, every milestone. He'd been watching over me the only way he could. On the last page, Warren's note, I couldn't hold you, but I could see you grow, and you were beautiful. I traced the words with my finger. You never gave up, I said aloud. You watched me from far away because that's all they'd let you do, but you never stopped loving me. I set the album on his grave. Then I pulled out the letters. All 247, one by one I laid them across the 3 graves. The FBI kept copies for evidence, but these are yours. They were always meant for you. When I finished, I sat back. I'm building something good here. The scholarship fund, the farm, a life all on the foundation you built. I touched each headstone. Dad, Mom, Grandpa, I wish I'd known you. I wish things had been different, but I'm going to make sure your deaths meant something. A car pulled up, Callum right on time. I walked to his truck and let him drive me home. That evening, Nell threw a celebration, not for Warren's death, for his life, for the scholarship fund's first year. Half of Redwood Hollow showed up. They filled the farmhouse porch yard. Someone brought a grill, someone else music. Kids ran through fields while adults talked and laughed. Bishop found me by the food table. Sutton called today. Federal investigations officially closed. Merrick's assets are being liquidated. Victims' families getting restitution. How much? Enough, more than enough. He smiled. You did good, Lila. Nell appeared with cake chocolate, Warren's favorite, and made everyone sing. I stood on the porch with Callum beside me, looking at all these people. This community that had protected me, helped me fight. What are you thinking? Callum asked. I'm thinking about the first day. I had barely any money in a duffel bag, didn't know anyone, was sure I'd end up alone again. And now, I looked at Nell laughing with friends. Hollis showing kids how to skip stones. Bishop relaxed for once, at Callum standing close. Now I'm home. 6 months later, on a warm April morning, I stood in the barn with the first scholarship recipients, 5 kids 17 to 19, fresh out of the system, holding letters that said someone believed in them. My name is Lila Hayes, I said. 18 months ago, I aged out of Riverside with no family, no plan. I thought my story was over. They watched with guarded eyes. I recognized that look. But I was wrong. My story was beginning, and so is yours. I gestured around. This farm belonged to my grandfather. He spent 16 years trying to reach me. Never gave up. When I finally came home, I found out I'd never been alone. I'd been loved the entire time. I pulled out Warren's last letter, read the line I'd memorized. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up. You 5 are showing up for your own lives, choosing to fight, to build. I handed each their scholarship check. This money came from a man who believed in second chances. Now I'm passing that to you. Go to school, learn a trade, start a business, build the life you deserve. A girl in front, 17, red hair, freckles, raised her hand. What if we fail? Then you try again until it works. I smiled. I burned down a barn, got threatened by a murderer, testified in federal court before 19. Trust me, failure's just part of it. They laughed, small laughs, uncertain but real. After the red-haired girl approached. Can I ask something? Of course. Do you ever stop feeling like you don't belong? Like everyone else has families and you're just pretending? I thought about Warren's letters, Nell's hugs, Hollis teaching me carpentry, Callum building fences beside me. About finding family in unexpected places. Yes, you stop when you realize belonging isn't given. It's built, one choice at a time. She nodded, then hugged me. I hugged back. That night, Callum and I sat on the porch watching sunset behind mountains. I've been thinking, he said. Dangerous. He smiled. I want to ask something. No pressure. He pulled a small box from his pocket. My breath caught. I know it's fast, 8 months. But Lila, I've never met anyone like you. You're brave and stubborn, and you fight for what's right even when it's terrifying. He opened the box. Simple silver ring inside. I don't want to be anywhere you're not. I want to build this life with you. The farm, the scholarship fund, all of it. I looked at the ring, his face, the land around us. 2 years ago, I'd been nobody, alone counting down days. Now I had a home, a community, a purpose, and someone who wanted to build a future with me. Yes, I said. He slid the ring on, kissed me soft and slow. When we pulled apart, I rested my head on his shoulder, looked up at stars. Somewhere Warren was watching. I hoped he was smiling. I hoped he knew every letter had mattered. I hoped he knew I'd come home, and I'd never leave. 3 years later, this farmhouse was full of noise. Good noise, happy noise. 20 scholarship recipients, current and former, filled every room. Some brought partners, some brought kids, all brought stories of lives rebuilt. Nell moved through the crowd with food bossing everyone like the grandmother she'd become. Hollis sat in Warren's chair telling stories about the early days. The barn raising, the trial. Bishop now kept peace with gentle humor. And Callum stood beside me, our 6-month-old daughter, asleep against his shoulder. We'd named her Celia Warren Hayes. Dark hair, Callum's quiet smile, Warren's determined chin. When she was older, I'd tell her about the great-grandfather who loved her before she existed, the grandmother who died too young, the father killed for standing up. I'd tell her about 247 letters and 16 years of love that refused to die. And I'd tell her the most important thing: you are never alone, never unwanted, never without people who'll fight for you. Because that's what family does. Not just blood family, chosen family, built family, the kind that shows up when everything falls apart. I looked around at all these people, this community, this home, and I thought about the girl who stepped off a bus 2 years ago with barely any money and a heart full of fear. I barely recognized her now. She'd been alone. I was surrounded. She'd been afraid. I was fierce. She'd believed she came from nothing. But I knew the truth. I came from love, from sacrifice, from people who fought impossible battles because they believed some things were worth dying for. And now I'd spend my life teaching other lost kids they came from somewhere too, that their stories weren't over, that home was waiting. Callum shifted. Baby Celia stirred, making sleepy sounds. You okay? He asked. I looked at our daughter, the scholarship kids laughing. Nell and Hollis and Bishop and everyone who'd become family. At 285 acres that had cost 8 lives but now represented nothing but hope. I'm perfect. Outside sunset painted the sky gold and pink and purple. And inside the farmhouse Warren had kept for me, love the kind that survives death and distance and time lived on. Just like he'd always known it would.